I've had the privilege of standing between you guys and Snack is what Hafsa tells me. So I will try to make it as simple and interesting for all of you guys. I'm Naman Kapoor. I take care of Citibank Middle East Africa payments business. I'm not a payment expert. I'm sure there are much bigger payment experts over here, but I have kind of spent 20 years in payments across India, Singapore, Malaysia, South Korea, and Dubai and Middle East Africa. So what I'll also do is not to talk to you about all the theoretical stuff that's happening for instant payments. I'll focus a lot around what is the innovation happening, what do the corporates want, what are some of the things that we can do in Rust, and what does the future look like for us. So that's what I will try to do. I will focus a lot more on instant payments and try to bring the global trends around instant payments for all of you. Let's talk about everything that's happening in the evolving payments landscape, right? I think digital economy growth, we're all aware of cash going away. We spoke a lot about that. We spoke about instant payments growth, right? Even in Middle East Africa, Pakistan, all of this part of the world, instant payments is growing at about 30% CAGR. That's a massive growth rate. From a regulatory landscape perspective, again, we're aware of everything happening from a digital payments perspective, from digital assets perspective, how there is ISO, how there's so much of convergence. I think if there is one thing that I want you guys to take away from this slide, it is the last box on the right. The evolution of payments in terms of whether we should have RTGS, what's the role of RTGS, what's the role of ACH, and what's the role of IP. Multiple countries are in this stage globally, where a lot of times after having RTGS, we are taking a step back into ACH. I personally believe that some of the work that's happening in Pakistan around RTGS and IP, that is the way to go forward. I think ACH, more and more, we will see the convergence of the ACH rails with instant payments. Because if you look at it from a client perspective, it is a continuum of payments. The same instant gratification that an individual paying to a person on a P2P platform, the same one is required by a treasurer. The same one is required by our corporate clients. So that, I think, again, is a big piece. And we are seeing already globally, whether you look at Hong Kong, Brazil, Australia, massive convergence of ACH and IP. Hong Kong actually sunset their ACH completely, and they're only promoting IP. So that is the kind of convergence and explosion of IP that we are seeing globally. And you see a lot of stats over here. Obviously, there are 2-3 leaders that we see globally on instant payments. There is UK that has really exploded, but obviously there is India and Brazil that have some of the maximum volumes. I spent about 10, 12 years in India, roughly around the same period that UPI was exploding, around 2014 to 2024. So did a lot of work with NPCI around what happened in the UPI revolution, what happened in the instant payments, why 50% of the instant payments globally is on UPI platforms. The evolution of UPI from payments to platform, I'll again try to take you through that as well. But I think the most important piece is the maturity curve. As we talk about, and in Rust right now, we have a lot of P2P, we have a lot of G2P. So we already have a lot of 1 and 2 stage in Rust, right? But where do we want to get to? We want to get to increasing a lot of the P2M acceptance, and then again, from a cross-border APIs perspective. The 38 billion of remittances that come in, what percentage of those remittances go to the Rust platform? And that is where we need to go. Most of the cross-border payments coming into Pakistan should finally be going through Rust, instantly into wallets, instantly into customer bank accounts. And that is where, again, a lot of the future is from the fourth point. And the third point around P2M acceptance. Once P2P is there, it's always, P2P has always started being the first one in across all IPs, right? But as more and more corporates start accepting payments through IP, that's when the innovation and that's when the value addition on IP keeps on happening. Let's all be very clear. There is no magic in instant payments. Instant payments is just moving the payments. The magic starts happening when the percolation of instant payments happens everywhere. And that is when the innovation starts happening and the value addition that starts happening. And that is what I will again cover in some of the coming slides. This is a very important slide, according to me, because let's let's leave what we want to do as bankers. Let's think about what our clients want. Let's think about what our corporates want and what are the real use cases that have got a lot of adoption globally. And here I have a compendium for you guys of what we have seen globally, right? Ride hailing, food delivery, gig economy, absolutely the first one, right? All of these B2C payments, every taxi driver, every restaurant, everybody wants that money to be credited to them on a daily basis at an order level, not a weekly cycle. So again, massive, massive adoption over there. Marketplaces that we use, Amazon and all the large marketplaces, all of us, when we apply for a refund, want an instant refund. None of us want to wait for 1 day, 2 day for refunds. So again, an instant refund on online marketplace. Airlines do so much refunds. Our baggages get lost. We cancel tickets. All of those refunds should be on instant payment rails, should be on alternate payment mechanisms, should be on cards. That is again a big use case that we are seeing globally. Content services, obviously with Meta, TikTok, all of that exploding, all of those influencer payments happening through this. From an accept perspective, right? We spoke about airline, but let me give you a few more very typical B2B cases, right? Where is the maximum acceptance that we are seeing? Telecom. At 3 a.m., your data runs out and you need to watch a World Cup match. There is an exciting match that's happening and the data has run out. What is exactly needed is an instant payment rail that will credit it in 2 minutes and you will get the data recharge. So telecoms globally are one of the biggest user of IP rails. Airlines are a big user. Insurance. Whenever you're doing an insurance claim, do you want a check to come to our houses? Do we want the physical instruments to travel for 2, 3 days, 7 days? Absolutely not. Insurance, more and more claims are moving into the IP rails. How do the insurers pay directly to the corporates, to the clients, through IP rails? Again, a massive, massive use case around payments and acceptance. Utility, and I'll speak a lot about how QR codes, I believe, are critical to IP, all right? You will always have apps where you can use instant payments, but what really takes it to billions of people are the QR codes. QR codes on a newspaper where you can make the payments, QR codes on every electricity bill, every telecom bill, every utility bill. Digital, every website having a QR code, and the app being so convenient that it is as convenient as the card rails. What is IP competing with globally? IP, instant payments, is competing with the convenience of a card, convenience of the card points, and the third one is around the working capital benefit, right? The credit cycle that you get on a card. And if an instant payment is able to cater to these three things, is able to compete with these three things, that is what success looks like. In India, in Brazil, in all of the countries where instant payments have exploded, the central bank, the banks, and the ecosystem has found a way to take care of these three things. And this is what I was going to talk about, that payments and acceptance is what I call pretty much table stakes. You got to do that. You got to be 24/7. You got to be 365. But it is the validate layer and the value addition layer that starts adding massive benefit from a corporate perspective. How much money do we waste in onboarding employees and vendors? We still have so many processes around getting a canceled check for onboarding a vendor, for onboarding an employee. What if we're able to do real-time bank account validation, real-time bank account name validation? All of those things save massive expenses for the corporates. How much money do the corporates waste in terms of return of funds? For a Benny account not being valid, for a Benny details not being valid, beneficiary core bank not being right. If all of that pain is taken away from corporates through a bank account, through a bank routing mechanism, validation, that is what the corporates are looking for. And that is the biggest use cases. And what do the corporates and the clients pay for? They do not pay for the payment or the acceptance. They start paying for the validation, the value addition through all of that when they can actually see expense saves. And when you start adding value through all of those, that is when it starts becoming monetizable. This is a great slide on everything that's happening globally on the value addition use cases, right? And if you look at over here, let's start with Brazil, right? you've got full proxy alias validation, right? Any point of time we want to check, is this the correct alias? Will the money reach on a Sunday night? Will the money reach at 4 a.m.? Absolutely, we can check that. When you start doing the orchestration by the central bank in terms of how the payments are being routed, how do we ensure that there are minimal returns and 100% validation? That is when Brazil plays a great role. Let's go to India for a second. Over here again, you have the UPI, VPA ID validation. And again, we have to put a lot of thought process. Right now, I understand in Rust, most of it is mobile numbers as an alias. Is that good enough? Do our customers want to be able to choose any alias? Do they want their name? Do they want their email ID? Do they want their birth date? Do they want their favorite soccer team to be an alias? Those are the kind of questions that we need to ask about alias. And let's go beyond banking, right? Let's talk about identity. Can my tax ID number be validated? I want to be able to show that when I'm doing a commercial transaction in a B2B landscape, and this is the tax ID that the person or the corporate is giving me, can that be validated? Those are the kind of value additions that, again, corporates start paying for. Australia, again, the whole thing around when you get the Benny name, and we do this, and sometimes you have to do sanctions checks and AML checks and all those kind of things, right? Just the name validation, whether it's a partial match, a full match, no match. This is the kind of intelligence which then enables you to put an AI or a bot on top of it to be able to completely automate the payment flow. So again, a big use case around the Australia landscape. Well, now let's look at this around the QR piece, right? I spoke a little bit about this from a QR landscape perspective, but the biggest benefits, right? Low cost, anywhere people are carrying a sticker of their QR code. At the back of their phone, they are carrying a sticker of the QR code. There's a small Kirana store in Karachi. There is a pharmacy in Lahore. Anywhere you want to pay, having a simple QR code at the stall, at the checkout counter, that's the kind of convenience that QR has. Can QR replace the MDR machines and the card machines? In terms of convenience and cost, absolutely. And that is the kind of revolution, again, that we are seeing of QR codes being there everywhere in terms of convenience. I think if you again look at the adoption curve, right? The kind of adoption curve we saw from millions to going into tens of millions, hundreds of millions of QR code globally, I think that in itself tells you a lot of advantages of QR code. Now, again, we're talking about the same value ladder that we spoke about, that how it would, again, start from P2Ps, people scanning across QR codes, people showing their phones of these are the QR codes. But as it goes more and more into P2M and B2B, that is where the real magic starts happening. In B2B, I want to give you two use cases that are some of the best use cases. We have a really large auto OEM, right, producing vehicles. And one of the biggest profit that any automaker makes is on spare parts. But for the spare parts to leave the workshop to the actual merchant who's selling the spare parts, there should not be a reconciliation mechanism. If you take a reconciliation mechanism and if it takes days to happen, the order is gone. From there, if you're able to really validate that the payment has happened, an instant reconciliation is able to happen, that is when the spare parts, rather than with 2 days delay, leave with the same day. And that is sales enablement for in the B2B supply chain. Let me give you a quick example of some of the stuff that has happened in one of the South Asian countries, right? We right now have a two-party model, but if somebody asks me what is it that has taken UPI to about 50% of the global volumes, I would think it's the four-party model. In the four-party model, the remitter bank account and the beneficiary bank account are at the back end. But the fintechs like Google Pay, Phone Pay, Walmart, any of those, Flipkart, any of the global firms can come in and give you the best client experience. If I have to point out one thing which creates IP explosion, then that has to be consumer experience and client convenience. That is what it comes down to. I would also request the banks to look at what is the kind of client experience that a PhonePe and a Google Pay is giving. And how do we replicate that? A lot of the other banks have not been able to do it. But if you're able to do that, then I think that would be really, really useful. And it comes down to some of that. Again, one of the things that I was talking about, that you have to start thinking about the entire ecosystem, not just about the payment. You have to think about the identity layer. How are you able to completely digitize the identity layer? Think about the payment layer. And then think about the data aggregation and the open banking layer. These are the three layers that when you look at it from an ecosystem perspective, start adding end-to-end value. And I want to talk a little bit about public-private partnership. We talk about the fintech innovation, but I think one of the key things is that central banks and banks manage the rails, but we let the fintech players, the biggest tech players innovate on that rails. And that has been of massive success in most of the countries where we have four-party model. Even if you look at some of the volumes tell you very clearly. Only 10% of the volumes, even in UPI, are on the two-party platform. The two-party platform is when there is a bank app on both sides. But when you have a fintech app in which you completely delineate the fintech client experience, your payment app and your banking app are totally interoperable and interchangeable. With utmost client experience, that is when the magic starts happening. And that is what should be a focus for us to be able to grow Rast more and more. So I've spoken a lot about IP payments, and I have 2 minutes left. So I'll just, last 2 minutes, I wanted to leave you with digital money, right? And again, as we keep going into instant payments, and I think the previous speaker spoke a lot about digital money as well, the key stuff starts happening around the stable coins and the tokenized deposits. Let me talk to you a little bit about, I've not brought about any Citi slide till now, and this is my only Citi slide, so I'm not here to talk about Citi, but I will talk about tokenized deposits. I think tokenized deposits have the best of both worlds. You're able to get the credit to the clients in terms of liquidity management, from a balance sheet management, yet you're able to move funds from a DLT perspective. And this, I believe, is one of the biggest futures. And the announcement that you've seen recently around the clearinghouse coming together to be able to make tokenized deposits interoperable. That, again, is, we believe, is the future of digital payments. That not only the physical money moves into digital money, it actually moves to tokenized deposits. It benefits from everything that distributed ledger technology has to offer, but it also benefits from everything that a bank balance sheet has to offer to the corporates. And this is again something that we've been talking about, that where would the biggest innovation come from? I believe there's so much of innovation happening on the traditional rails, instant payment, real-time cross-border payments, Swift retail scheme, all of that is happening. And then there is DLT happening, and there is bridge happening, and all of those things. The future in this multi-polarized world would be when the digital rails and the traditional payment rails come together. And I believe that was going to be the biggest future. That is what we are betting on, and that is the work that we are doing in terms of getting both of those worlds together. That is a quick roundabout of everything that I had to say. I'm available for any questions. I have stuck to time, so that is giving you some time back. And thank you for being a wonderful audience.